The beginning of this video will be a recreation of the opening minutes of a full access 25 conference session. Because the room recording was lost and the Zoom recording was started late, that's the reason. Those photos you saw a moment ago were Jonn Howell, Mike Ross, and me getting into costume and making a drawn-out grand entrance to a complete track by Blue Oyster Cult, complete with cowbell. Vince Menanno was also in costume, but I don't have a photo of him because I think he's the one taking the photos. On with the presentation. Welcome to the Arranged Groups Laboratory. This session is essentially going to be a developer meeting about developer meetings and about anything else that falls into the domain and the potential of FileMaker community. By the way, that Don't Fear the Reaper song, did anyone get the media tie-in yet? Stephen King was inspired by it when writing his novel The Stand, which opens with a secret lab accidentally releasing an extremely contagious virus. The Reaper is also the opening theme song for the 1994 miniseries based on The Stand. In May 2020, DIGFM had this Claris Community versus COVID-19 presentation from the Claris COVID-19 response team. On one hand, we sadly watched in-person developer meetings dissolve. But on the other hand, it was inspiring to see Claris and partners coming together to provide resources to assist beleaguered healthcare, education, disaster response, and nonprofits. Of course, this discussion we're about to have is inspired by the worst and the best of outcomes since that outbreak, which is why I want to kick off the conversation with a risky experiment, as if we're a conspiracy of mad scientists designing lab viruses and of social engineers trying to maximize the spread of those viruses into the population. I think the strategies involved make a good metaphor despite how evil it sounds. But why explore such an evil exercise? Well, someone who is fabulously famous for being good says, "Be wise as serpents and harmless as doves." In other words, it's good to gain an understanding of how harmful things work, as long as we only use our powers for good. Another inspiration is the first marketing evangelist. No, not Claris's Rick Kalman, but Guy Kawasaki from Macintosh's 1984 era. How to Drive Your Competition Crazy is the only book I read by Guy, and I only ever had to apply it as an in-house developer. Lots of fun and creative ways to approach competition in there, which inspired me to come up with fun and creative ways to do all kinds of things. Now, the first section in there is to lay the groundwork, which is to know yourself, your customer, and your enemy. Coincidentally, I organized this presentation the same way before I went back and peeked at the book. So, as a community, let's get to know ourselves in a different light. Imagine, if you will, that you've been called to gather at a conference of mad scientists, virologists, epidemiologists, and immunologists. Not to slow the spread of viruses, but to design viruses with maximum epidemic potential, and to engineer society to spread those viruses as quickly and as widespread as possible. Put on your mad scientist personas for at least the next 7 slides, and even longer if you find out this works for you. You should know that at DIGFM, Dr. No, Dr. Robert No, has been playing along with our mad scientist persona for a couple years already. Dr. No was not on the line when I gave this presentation live. This makes a ripe opportunity for us to introduce our panel of scientists, heading up this discussion, and to find out what kind of scientists we have in the room. Who do we have on this panel? So at this point, several people in the room introduced themselves. Somewhere in the middle of that, I realized Zoom was not recording. But we thought we at least had the main room recording, except that was lost too. So we're just going to pick up where the Zoom recording began. The quality is not good, because this audio was just a computer trying to pick up a whole room of people. So if you're interested, listen carefully to what people have to say. Otherwise, probably just enjoy the show.
It's really important that we have those opportunities. Maybe the solution is a hybrid thing where we meet online, and then once in a while, once or twice a year, we can meet and have these in-person events. But the in-person events are really critical. So pass it on.
Greetings, I'm Taylor Sharpe with the Dallas FM user group. We're an in-person group that focuses on advanced to intermediate level developers. So we meet because of that intentionally during the day, lunchtimes, first Friday of the month. We typically have anywhere from 15 to 25 people in person, and there's usually a dozen or so virtually. But we've been very intentional to keep our meetings in person because we think there's specific value on it. We've got actually Clay's coming to see us in January, so that'll have him come speak. But part of it is letting presenters know that I get a long list of presenters that we would like to present with you virtually, and it's like, no, we've had to tell the presenters that this is an in-person thing. Yes, we do have some virtual going on, but unless there's some, we might make an exception. I don't know, you're in the hospital or something. I don't know. But so outside of something unusual, we do that. And among other things that really benefits about it, and I will speak this up, I know most organizations, groups would be able to do this, but Harmonic Data is a platinum platform, a provider or whatever you call it, a partner. And the largest one in Dallas, and they are supporting this by letting us meet at their offices, and they buy lunch for everybody afterwards. Now, not fancy lunch or anything, but and part of the deal is we have a presentation, we sit down and do this thing, but it forces networking afterwards, where we sit down and eat with each other, and that's where we get to know each other and see what business is going on, and it could be something that in the past we used to have it where we went to a restaurant that had a private meeting room and everybody paid for their own, and to some degree, we're actually trying to reach out to some people to start sponsoring some of our lunches so that Harmonic isn't paid for all of them, because they shouldn't have to pay for all of them. But it's it takes intentionally saying, hey, we're gonna do things in person, and saying we're looking for speakers in person, and I think there's a lot of value on it. And the other thing about it is, there's the presenting time can clearly be on Zoom. You can
Recording.
Okay.
Ready, Kayla? You ready? Okay. Well, back where we were at, we're talking about meeting in person, but one of the things about the networking part is having the lunch afterwards has been a really important part of that. And it could be, I had Claris, Julie back in the day, it was a hard time that we don't focus on beginners or bringing new people into it. But part of it is we have an intentional audience that is going well. And if we want to do something different, we want to do something different. What we have seems to be working well in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And it's not the biggest thing out there, but we have a lot of people regularly involved and committed to it, and there's a social aspect to. It's kind of ironic, we're all together, we're all competing for the same clients, but anyway, in fact, I remember, I'll just give you a story. When I first started full-time FileMaker was in 2013, and that was when Kurt was getting out of FileMaker. And so I took over because I usually thought, oh, well, if I run the group here, I'll find a bunch of business or something. What you do is find a bunch of developers, and you'll find a bunch of business out of it. But But whatever, it got me involved, and so it's been a lot of fun. And we have a good time. So some good friendships within the
Yeah,
group
you can do that. Just turn it around and face.
because intentionally you're meeting each other face to face.
I forgot to add that when I was living here in California, I used to come down to the Wedge for the meetings that were there. So the DIGFM group before it became an online thing. And one of my fond memories is I was the door prize winner of the diskette that had a version of the FileMaker server. 1.5 megabytes.
Get this mic back.
I don't dare stand up.
Turn that computer.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's on.
I think the mic's off. Gene,
Yeah, I muted everything a moment ago.
should I leave this off?
You're good.
What color are you?
Green?
Got it.
Everything's green.
That's
Okay.
John.
There you go.
I am George. How do I say this? Hagrid?
Yeah.
I am Hagrid. Thank you.
Haggard.
And Haggard, he's always sleeping on the sofa. First of all, I'll say Maeckel, Dennis, and Taylor, the group you're in, from what I've seen, has got the largest in-person turnout of all the groups at this particular point in time. Take some of this off now, but it's impossible to drink coffee. I'll tell you that. Oh, that was fun.
Oh, it's Jonn Howell.
Nice. Up till 15 years ago, I managed an educational, FileMaker centric educational program down in Los Altos, Westlake Village, Southern California. And when that ended, I started a FM Pug LA group, one of the Pug label that was big popular back then. I've been a member of FM Disc for something in the neighborhood of 20 years. But that's all like super professional people. And I wanted to have something that was more, it's always been my style. This even educational stuff I did was like meat and potatoes, people, young people, those who don't know much to learn, and not just all the cool latest things with the APIs and stuff, but it was about, how to say it, anchor buoy. It was about data normalization theory we would teach and all the meat and potatoes and stuff that there is no real education for these days about understanding database theory and practical things about layout design and relational design, all that kind of stuff. And that was a lot of fun. I did the training for 7 years. FM just about 20 years. I started FM in LA. I lasted a couple of years. And since it was geared toward newer people and younger people, it was hard to keep that crowd because those who considered themselves professionals wanted to go to FM Disc and they weren't going to go to both. So I struggled to keep that alive. At a certain point, I stopped working for Amgen, which was in Thousand Oaks, along with my friend George. We're both from Amgen. And I got a contract with Genentech, which I still have open now after 18 years. And they're in South San Francisco. And I'm like, why am I living in LA? I grew up in San Francisco. I like Northern California. It's more my style. So I moved up to Auburn outside of Sacramento. And then, so about 6 years ago, I started, it was, what do we call it? I think it was FM Pub Sacramento. So I sat at Sacramento group in one of those shared office spaces that were really big before COVID, right? Where there'd be people with desks and guys renting out desks in the room. And he had two of these lovely meeting rooms, and I had a thing like an owl. It's called an e-meet device. It just looks different. And we put that on this dining table, and it was like a boardroom, and people would come from all over Sacramento. And we would have people also, because it was hybrid, coming in through Meetup. And the purpose of having them through Meetup was to get them interested enough to maybe show up in person. Because for me, I've always been an in-person thing. And the personal side is that I've been living alone for 40 years, right? I got a cat, I don't have a wife, I don't have kids. I work from home, I got a laboratory in my living room, and I live and breathe this stuff. I can't even get away from it hardly, right? So last thing I want to do is one more dang Zoom meeting, right? I need to be in touch with people, right? Like even I joined a Bible study recently. We have several of them online. I'm like, no, I'm not going to that. I want to be in a room with people where you can have eye-to-eye contact, hugs, handshakes, get that personal sense. So I've always loved these kind of meeting groups. It's in my blood for forever. So we don't do that group anymore. And now I'm home alone. I got really excited when they moved, when they started renovating the Pause on Air group, and they went to Georgia and went there for 3 years, and it's great. But obviously, everybody had to travel from wherever to Georgia, and I live in California. There's been a long talk about, well, Pause on Air is great. We'd like to have one out here. And so I had an opportunity. I finally found this place. I thought, well, let's just do Pause on Air here. And they didn't want to do it. And so I had to call and just call all my friends and just do this here to try to initiate the idea of meeting again in person in West Coast, 8.5 miles from Claris headquarters. I thought that's a great start. There is discussion that if this thing becomes successful and people like it and they want to do this again, now with the help of Patrick and Ron Cates and Dean and everybody else and Eric, we have all the infrastructure in place for full access. So it costs us a lot less money and effort to do it sequentially after this, if it's desired. We didn't come into this thinking we're ever going to do it again. We thought this is a substitute for Pause on Air. And then we realized this is not quite that. This is a different kind of thing. This is a little more hybrid, but it's a little more like the developers conference. And if it becomes a thing, we're happy to carry it on. It's not ego involved. We want to do that. We want to do what's right for the community. If people say this is enough and be done, we'll close the doors. Ron and Patrick worked so hard on this incredible website, and WordPress, and FileMaker backend, and all the other people. You all know the dimensions involved in pulling this off are incredible amount of work. Probably 3,000 hours of work since February. We didn't even exist then. I'm not surprised that our turnout's low because nobody knows who we are. We're not the rich, famous, smart people that's so popular, like everybody wants to go to our convention. It's the people who know us and the people who are sincerely interested who attend this. And it's great because we have a good core, great core of people here. And when I talked to Eric about doing this idea of, well, let's open it up since we're close to Claris. I'm so delighted that there's a number of people from Claris here. Brian will be here tomorrow to see the developer's perspective, finally bringing it in your neighborhood. But we'd like to revitalize the in-person meeting after, and we all survived COVID, but I found it miserable to be home alone. Anywhere I went, I had to wear a mask. When I go to church, I had to wear a mask. So I want to be in person. I love getting the hugs and the handshakes and eating together. You know, sat with the Burnham brothers for breakfast this morning. When do I get to talk to them? Never. This is an opportunity where you build friendships, right? I've made more friends since we started this. I'll cry. I have made more friends in the last 8 months than I thought was possible or that any human being deserves. And there's nothing special about me, but just deciding to throw ourselves in the arena and do something like this, I find that there's a huge hunger for this kind of thing. That's why so many people responded so quickly to want to support us, and if they could make it. There's a number of people who wanted to be here, couldn't be here. There's some that had to cancel for the last minute for health or politics. We lost a couple people here who got sick just like yesterday and couldn't show up. So that happens. But I'm delighted that we've gotten as far as this, and really the idea is just to use this as a launching pad for us all to sit and discuss and ideate, come up with ideas and thoughts about how can we go ahead and make it a little more like the old days with the developers conference, but with a new flavor, post-COVID. It's a new day, but a lot of the old stuff really worked. We're revitalizing something that's a little like the old developers conference that all the developers loved, being in one place, talking principally, like 87% about technical sessions and about 13% we found roughly around interpersonal stuff, like the public speaking thing and how to exit application and things like that, all important. And we want the environment to be really open to ideas. People, I want to do this. We never thought about that. Dennis brought us some ideas we didn't consider. People kept throwing in stuff, and it's like there's at least this week, a sense of revitalization going on. I just want to encourage that. I don't care who does it or how it turns out. None of us have an investment in propriety about this. We just want it to succeed. Brian, I don't know where he is. He had his niece put together these, and I'll pass these around. And it's just another way of trying to make it real, some virility. I said the other thing. What did I say there?
Virility, it's for virality.
These are stickers.
Can't wait to get home.
Stickers you can put in there. Just again, that's why we did hats, we did jackets, we did pens, we did journals. And I'll tell you why we did that. And that's not like a marketing thing, oh, we're trying to sell something. Back in the day when I did the educational series in Thousand Oaks, everybody got a embroidered fleece jacket, right? I run into David Knight like 15 years after. He's like, he had this beat up old jacket, embroidery was still, he goes, I wear this everywhere. And that just hit me. It's like, you take home the few little things of what we call merch that we're giving you to take home, because you're going to remember this for many, many years. The stuff we bought, high quality, will last. It'll just be like in your heart, like, I had so much fun. I want more of that. It plants the seed that you just won't forget this when you leave. That's why we did it that way.
All right.
That's enough. I just think that there's a big community of people here. The 17 people who were volunteers putting this together and all the others that helped really want to revitalize a sense of community and convince us about how do we go about it. None of us is coming here saying, I have a definition of how it has to be. We're all just throwing our hats in the ring, doing everything we can and trying to encourage it. Because I know that the Claris product line was successful because all the wonderful stuff that developers take and put together. We take your product and we put it in the world, and we're all together a family. And we want to encourage that. All of us are family. Thank you.
Right. Oh, yeah, just go ahead and turn that off. So 45 minutes in, we're going to go ahead and speed this up for the groundwork. Just take a quick survey of the rest of the audience. What kind of virologist what kind of scientist do we have here? Oh, I got in edit mode. Sorry about that. There we go. And I got it in escape mode. There we go. Developers. All right. Who in here is a developer of any kind? Whether of the platform itself or of, yeah, there we go. I was waiting for that one to play. All right, but yes, let's break this down. We've got Claris engineers. How many in here are actual Claris engineers who contribute to the product directly? One. Okay. Thank God for the one. Okay. App developers. The rest of them app developers. So Clay doesn't actually develop any apps.
Well, really doesn't.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I do have a solution that microphone still actually. Oh.
That's enough.
I actually do have one.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, sure. I
Hold it up your chin.
do have one solution that I wrote 20 years ago or something, or I don't know. It runs on FileMaker Pro 6. But it still runs on FileMaker Pro 6.
Nice.
It's being used for like many of the agility trials that are being held in California right now.
Oh, wow.
And well, the thing is, I couldn't sell it because I can't make money off of it. It was kind of it was like one of my test sites or something like that. So everything helped develop FileMaker 7 from that, but it still runs on Windows 11, and she's using that at all the trials, and it still keeps working. So,
Wow.
She doesn't want to buy a single license for $600 or anything. But yeah, so I have done some app development stuff. Dealt with a customer that kept asking for new changes and stuff like that all the time. So I experienced some of you guys paying.
Yeah. Just curious. All right. So who else we got here? We have any evangelists in the room? Now, does anybody else try to promote the product besides Rick? Okay. Yeah, okay. And then we got partners. Who's here an actual partner? Because I am not a partner, but I'm under the understanding that there's some sort of promotion of product and, of course, your own products as well involved there. All right. I think that covers most of the categories. I think just about everybody falls in one of those categories at least. Okay, so that's getting to know ourselves, but as an extension of ourselves, we have the viruses that we're actually trying to spread. Or that's what I call our communicables, right? And one of those would be the Claris platform itself, FileMaker, Connect, Studio. Did I miss anything? And beyond that, we've got our developer code, so stuff that the developers are actually making, and they've got sample code they're showing people and spreading that stuff around. And we have just our general ideas. An example, of course, is in the community, we we had a place where we could submit ideas, and that some of those appear to be getting used. And now we know that Claris secretly gathers information from various sources and gets ideas that way. And we share ideas amongst each other about how to develop and other things, like products, right? So there's actual products to be sold and spread around as well. And in addition to that, services, okay? I don't know if there's anything that falls outside of these categories, but these are examples at the very least of things that we're trying to spread into the community. All right, and so since we're talking about things in terms of viruses, I do want to talk about viruses or virology in general, and that would be specifically the viral properties to aid in transmitting a virus. So in the viral world, you have transmission routes and vectors, right? And so a transmission route, an example would be, how do I get a virus from my body to like Vince, right? So if I didn't have my gloves on, I'd be like, your hands have a kind of a mind of their own. They're always doing something, wiping their nose, scratching your eyes, and then I'm touching Vince's keyboard there, right? Next thing you know, he's touching the keyboard, and he would pick up the virus. That's a transmission route, right? Otherwise, of course, airborne and other things, but the primary one really is touch in many cases. Vectors would be an example of a vector would be mosquitoes, for instance. Getting a bite from a dog, you get rabies. That may not be a virus, but nevertheless, it's another contagious disease. Huh?
Disease
Yeah, yeah. And so, so you have different vectors. Now, I don't know how this translates into the things that we do. I mean, let me just give some loose examples for now, just like raw advertising on Facebook, advertising on YouTube, Instagram, whatever. You'd have different ways that you would, and of course, another way, of course, would be going to conferences and sharing your products there. So I'm just giving some quick examples here. Okay, now another strategy that's involved in getting your virus to spread are incubation periods and latency. All right, so a virus with a really short incubation period can spread fast because it from the time that you're infected to the time you begin exhibiting symptoms that actually help spread the virus is a really short period. And so it can like burst into the community. Like flus tend to spread really quickly because you catch it and a day or two later, you're out, all of your orifices are just like, just shooting everything, out and into the environment. And that stuff spreads quickly, colds and things like that. So yes, now the advantage of that, of course, is it spreads quickly, but the disadvantage is you could like knock out a community really quickly, and then you kind of get a burnout. You also create fear, right? Because if people see a lot of symptoms, everybody starts hiding, right? But the thing is, with the advantage of a late incubation period or a long incubation period would be somebody could be infected, not show symptoms for a long time. They could travel during that period of time and then spread the disease that way. So that's really the best strategy is actually to be able to do both. So and then latency is another one. Well, let me just cover the incubation period. So, examples of that are like maybe really short trial periods, for instance, like 45-day trial periods, for example, right? Now, the only thing that makes that possible is if you have like a really shallow learning curve and somebody can get symptoms sooner rather than later, right? Actually get results out of their product before the trial ends, right? Otherwise, if the trial ends before they actually produce anything, well, it could be a dead end for them, right? So that would be an advantage of actually having a longer, if somebody's not going to get things done in 45 days and they're going to, it's like, I don't know, then it might be to the advantage of having a long incubation period. I've seen a few examples of that lately. Ron, for instance, had, I would say, an infinite incubation period because he has a free product that he provides, right, on CWP snippets, right? And so I could get that, start trying that out and use that for as long as I want to. I start using it this year and, I just run out of time. I get busy and I'm going on vacation. It's like, and then my 45-day trial would have been up, but I could get to it next year or maybe when I retire from this job and get another job, I could pick that right back up again because it's still available. Another example would be, and maybe it's got somebody to let in, I think. Another example would be, I think I saw Inspector Pro is free now. So again, you've got another example of an infinite incubation period right there. Latency is another thing. Shows up in Lyme disease and what's another one? Even chicken pox, right? You catch that as your kid. People aren't catching that as much now because with that vaccine, I believe. But nevertheless, if you catch it as a kid, it's going to show up later as an adult very often as shingles. And I don't know if it sheds, as a virus while you're in shingles, but there are other ones that do that where they just hang out, hide in your body for a long time. Way down the road, it just pops out again and starts spreading again. So that's a huge advantage to the virus because they might find a cure for it or kill it off, and then everybody assumes, we're all immune now, and just all of a sudden it shows up 40 years later because it was hiding in people's bodies. So we've got really the same kind of things in the products that we have and the ideas that we have. Sometimes an idea is just the time is not ripe for it. Later on, something comes up and that idea just takes off. Let's see. Do we have? What do we also have? Oh, host ranges. Okay, so a host range would be the people in the population that you could infect at any given time, right? So, like if we had a virus that, it could infect anybody, young or old or any age, then that would be highly viral, right? That's what you'd want. Or even better would be something that could go over between species, right? That can infect your dogs and your cats and the cows and the chickens and everything could catch it. It'd just be bouncing around between species all the way around the world. And it would be very difficult to stop. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, what if you only had something that could only infect, the females of the species, right? So, here we'd have a problem, right? You would not be able to infect very many, and it would be very difficult to spread it. Even worse if it only infected the red-haired, green-eyed females, right? Then it would be a long time in between before that virus could jump to another host and be able to spread. Now, again, in our community, in the FileMaker community, we do have examples where things are more difficult to spread because they're not cross-platform, for instance. If you have a solution that's like, only AppleScript. Well, that's really cool for all the people who have Macs, but it's not really cool for all the people who have Windows, right? So it will spread within the Mac community, but probably not as fast as something that's cross-platform. Even the people who use Macs are thinking, am I going to be able to use that for my Windows customers and things like that? So it's the same kind of issue where you want your host ranges to be maximized to spread to many different kinds of hosts as you can. Then I guess I jumped ahead here. We got bodily function and behavior modifications, another thing that viruses do. Essentially, bodily function would be like all of a sudden your nose starts running more. You start coughing and sneezing, and wiping your face and touching things, right? It's changed your behavior and actually helped spread the virus. Behavior modifications. Let's show some examples. So the cold and flu symptoms are a prime example, right? Those symptoms change your bodily function and actually help spread the virus. I'm trying to think of an example of that I don't have examples for all these. So if anybody else thinks of one, what kind of behaviors could you change in your customer or in the people that you're talking to so that they would automatically share your ideas or share your product, right?
Fear is a good example.
Yeah.
Put fear into their minds about backups or security on the latest version, and they hear stories of that.
Susan's our mic runner.
Yeah.
Oh, she is.
Sorry, fear. I was saying just fear, making sure that people are aware of the potential losses that they can incur.
Yeah.
So that's so a good way to make sure people get courage and stuff.
Yeah, you make an announcement for something like we're going to have a presentation on security. I think Rosemary had one like that, and it was like, and then also Chris Moyer. He had some good presentations on. He's very security minded, and so he would He had several presentations, how to protect yourself from ransomware and things like that. A DIGFM presentation we have on ransomware. And yeah, that's the way we presented it as advertised. He's like, put a little fear, this could happen to you. And then, okay, let's attend and find out how we prevent that from happening. So that's another way to spread an idea. I'll give you another example here. We got Toxoplasma gondii in mice and cats. That's the disease that causes toxoplasmosis. And that's not a virus, that's a parasite. It does extreme behavior modification because it's pretty easy to infect a mouse. They're all grubbing around the ground all the time. And they're picking up this disease off the ground from what cats poop and things like that. So it's pretty easy to infect them, but how do you get it back to the cat, right? Well, the parasite changes the mouse's behavior and makes it so it's not afraid of cats. Just starts running around outside, just out in the open, will play right in front of a cat, and no problem, right? And of course, the cat, you probably won't be able to resist the temptation to take a chomp out of it, and the next thing you know, it's infected. And actually, that also can transfer to people too, so be careful about that. So anyway, what does this have to do with our community, right? I'm going to give you an example how something spread virally with where I work, okay? So I first picked up FileMaker 45-day trial just so I could perform some reports. And I got tired of doing the hand-coded reports that they were doing off the mainframe. I said, I'm just going to download all the data and import it into FileMaker and produce the reports out of that. And I had some other uses for it too, right? So I could talk my company into buying me my personal copy after 45 days after I demonstrated some results, but I was not going to be able to talk them into buying the cat, which would be the server, right? That's going to take a while, right? So, but after some time, we developed some more applications. There was this Excel sheet that they were passing back and forth between departments on a floppy disk, and finally they said, "Hey, Eric, could you come up with a way to make this shareable?" Still, this is only between two different people who need to use it simultaneously. Excel was not the best solution because you can't have two people opening the file at the same time, at least back then. I don't know about now. So that's when I took another look at a FileMaker, and it did peer-to-peer sharing. Because at this point, it's only two people. How are you you're not going to be able to get them into talk them into buying the cat, right? And so but that exposes them the idea of being able to share. So you could I think peer-to-peer is only four clients, right? Huh?
What?
Well, maybe the original and then four others or something like that.
Yeah, five total.
Yeah. So you gave five people working on that simultaneously. Now you start whetting their appetite, right? So this is a pretty good example. Before you know it, we built more application. All of a sudden, more people want to get into the data that we're providing and the solutions that we have, and that's when we were able to sell them on buying server. And we've had server ever since, and now we've got over 100 licenses. Okay, so that would be unheard of in my environment unless something could go viral like that. Okay, we can talk about more examples later, but let's get through some of these others. Example properties in aiding viral transmission. So I thought this worked a different way, and I tested it recently. It doesn't work the same way that I remember. But I remember I used to be able to email a file to somebody or transfer a file to somebody, and if they tried to open it, it would prompt them to go to the App Store and download FileMaker Go. That didn't work for me this last time I tried it. All right, it just kind of stared at them, and they didn't know, what do you want me to do with it? So I don't know if there's something wrong with it. I'm only testing between two iPhones, so I don't know. But if it did work that way, that would be a little bit more viable. But in any case, even if you have a file for something, you can always instruct somebody. It's a little different than actually waiting for somebody to discover, your website or your advertisement, and they don't, it's like, why do I want that? But if you're talking to somebody directly, and you can say, hey, well, take this file and download that free application in FileMaker Go, then then you've approached viral. If you have a killer app and somebody else wants to use it, then that's what you want, right?
Aaron,
Yeah.
to add to that, I would say sometimes, I'm not a big Facebook, participant, but anytime I see a message, it's a message not telling me what the content is, is telling me like, oh, you should see this post.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm taken into the platform to spend time in the platform.
And get their advertising.
So like it makes me think that that's the same concept, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
take the user into the platform so that they can spend time with it and maybe make a file of their own or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then now this is not a FileMaker feature yet, but I always I thought, I was out camping one day and I was like, we were talking about playing Scrabble, and it's hard to find a place to do that with your board game and all that. I said, well, I could make a Scrabble game out of FileMaker or something. But then I was thinking, oh, well, I don't have a server and I don't have all this stuff and I don't have my laptop, but we all had phones. So wouldn't it be neat if FileMaker could do peer-to-peer sharing, right? FileMaker Go, that is. And I said, oh, maybe it's not possible. I don't know. And so, but then I went to Apple's coding site for iOS, and sure enough, they had all this information about how you could do sharing between directly, don't even need a network. You would do it over Bluetooth. And so I don't know if that would actually work. But anyway, I posted that as an idea that for a way that FileMaker Go could be viral, right? Because if you had something that you're using on your phone and you showed something, say, hey, because this is at another level, right? Because just using an application, that's one thing, but having something that you can communicate contact information that you've gathered and you're putting it together between other people out in the field. Because peer-to-peer sharing is never going to be able to compete with server, except when you don't have a server. I mean, you don't have if you're off the grid or you're in a remote place, but you have people out gathering information, you need to pull it together somewhere, then that would be the kind of thing. Another example I thought of is when we were at DevCon to Go. I'm a big fan of DevCon to Go. That's really cool that you did it, engage full access to Go. So what I really liked about DevCon to Go is it was fully accessible, right? And people were sharing information. What did they put in there? Oh, they did the QR code to share your contact information. But then after I watched it for a while, and I said, this is pretty weird watching people trying to mate their lenses to other people's screens all the time. So it wouldn't have been better if there was some way to actually spring up something like an airdrop between people, and you could share the information you have, like your contact information or what sessions you're going to and things like that. Because that's an example of a killer app that you'd want to spread, right? Because it's not a killer app for all kinds of purposes. It's a killer app for going to conferences, right? You go to a conference, everybody has it because everybody wants to know the sessions, mark off which ones they're going to, and maybe take notes in it, things like that, kind of like what we've got for you. All right.
I don't know if you're old enough to remember Palm Pilots.
Yeah. Oh yeah, did the same kind of thing.
We used to beam
Yeah.
contact information to people within range.
Yeah. So Palm Pilot was a good example of that from the beginning. AirDrop is kind of like that, but maybe not quite as automatic. So in any case, I'm just thinking, you could expand the usefulness of something like that. It becomes more viral. And I lost mine. There we go. Any case, just some ideas out there. All right, now let's talk about our populations, because this is actually the actual topic of today, to be honest. I was just trying to lay out some groundwork, because these are the customers of our viruses, right? We've got existing users, right? And I don't mean like developers, I mean users. People just use it. They're just putting data and getting data from the system. DIGFM actually used to have users, not just developers. User would just show up to find out what's possible, and they would hire people who showed up as developers. I got hired for a couple different jobs from users who just showed up to our meetings. So that's actually another way to go viral. I mean, the more techie our meetings get, the less you get actual users. you just get people who, and to be honest, we've got developers who don't even want to attend certain kinds of sessions just because it's way over their head. So something you got to watch out for that. Existing developers. Okay, now we're talking about everybody in this room, right? That's another one of our communities, and we've got forums and discussion lists. So that's another target arena, right? What am I talking about? Well, that's like FileMaker, Claris community, right? We share ideas and things that are going on in that community. There's a few other ones. What are the other ones? I don't know. That's the only one I ever go to be honest. It's oh yeah, Slack, FM Slug.
It's all that there's
FM Slug is another one. It's actually I would consider highly viral because interactions happen a lot quicker on that in that forum.
there's all the stuff that Rosemary is doing.
Mhm.
There's the stuff that Angie's doing with all the social media things where Rick, you probably know more of them, like Community Live. There's and then there's the training stuff.
And those do you call those interactive, right?
Yeah, like, I think that people participate in them.
Mhm.
There's quite a few of them.
There's some on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So in that case, I'm talking about like the type of the discussion list type of things. But yes, we got our user developer and meetups too, which I think the one you were talking about kind of falls more into that category.
Community Live.
Yeah. And of course DIGFM, FM Disc, Kentucky. Who else we got? Connecticut. Oh, you just walked in the room, huh? Recently. Yes.
Slug has like 440 members or something, right? That's pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, again, these are the kind of places and it shows, right? That's the reason you guys come and show up to these things is so you can present your ideas, present your products and your services, and because you're trying to reach more people, right?
Yeah, what gives something more traction than another thing? Like, people spend a lot of time on FM Slot.
Yeah.
But in kind of like the spirit of the guy who did the CEO of Netflix or something says our competition is like YouTube, Amazon, and sleep. Basically, if you don't have enough time, hopefully to spend time in a place where you're exchanging ideas and getting valuable input, and then at some point you just go to sleep. You just otherwise, what else do you don't have time to do it all. So I think one thing I'd love to see happen, and that is, although we have all these people here, like I don't see any new people. How do we get new people?
Oh, new people.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
How do we get new people?
Well, actually, I got that one. That one's coming up. That's one of our. Okay, we got conferences. We actually just talked. We talked about that. John talked about that extensively here in conference. Yes, this is a big deal, to be honest. I didn't realize how big of a deal. I'm gonna be honest. I just showed up because it's local, and because I got a good deal because I was volunteering. Right. That's why I showed up. But when I got here and I saw Vincent 3D and all these everybody else, it was just a whole nother level, and it's just constant communication. I'm sitting there having breakfast, lunch, and dinner with people who are talking about FileMaker and their business and things like that. Way different. So yes, I missed that. So here's your news prospects, and let's break those down. All right, we've got our new customers and end users. So that's again, those are people who are not typically in the room here. Although sometimes a lot of you are selling products to developers, but then we have like just the end users we're trying to get things to. Then we have our new developers that we're trying to reach. And then finally, I'm going to put these in a final category here because they're obviously going to be people we're targeting as new developers or maybe even new customers, but exposing students of educational institutions to these ideas and to this virus, right? And I mean, I'm just going to tell you that, people at educational institutes, they're going to college. To be honest, a lot of them don't know what they want to do. And if they know what they want to do, they're not probably going to be doing what they actually went to school for. That's just, don't tell them, right? But that's very often the case. That's what happened in my case. I'm a physics major and art. I did physics and art as an interdisciplinary degree. Yeah.
Can I just make a comment on the college thing?
Let me go ahead and finish here, and then let's see if you can tag right onto that. So so that's what I was, physics, art, right? I'm not doing physics and art right now. Make use of it some here and there a little bit, but it's because I got hooked, right? I had a job that wasn't any of those things, and then I got hooked into this, right? So being able to reach people who are just they're at the learning stages and they're exploring things, and that's usually what I recommend to people when going to college. It's like, if you don't know what you want to do, just do all your GE first, and you might find something. Your general education, you might find a topic or some subject of interest along the way. But it's the same thing when you get your hands on product, right, on the platform. A lot of students, they used to push Apple products pretty hard on college campuses, and that worked, I think. And maybe it didn't work. Maybe that's something not doing as pushing as hard as lately. But no, they still have their booths and everything there, their tables. But yeah, they used to have their evangelists and everybody showing up on a weekly basis on the campus before. But yes, it's something to think about. If you could find a way to reach them, I think that would be really important. John, you wanted to?
Okay, when we first started this, it was like people I talked to Vince and was encouraging us to like, why don't you reach out to local colleges? Because you got De Anza College and Woodhill College and College of San Mateo and San Jose State and University of Santa Clara and Stanford and California State University East Bay, which used to be Hayward, and Cal Berkeley. And of course, we didn't have a lot of time because this is a lot of work. But I did get as far, because Eric's got a connection with San Jose State, to promote this to the computer science students or anybody studying computer science as part of another major at San Jose State. Talked to a couple of ladies involved there and said, hey, we'll offer a scholarship. We'll let them in for free just to help us find people. And they were very helpful. And I broadcast it and posted it during the summer, and students were in it to try to get people to come. But we did not get one student responding. And I'd love to have gone to the other colleges, but there's only so much of us and so much time. We're pretty full. But the issue is like, I would love to be involved in promoting this to students, to getting involved, because you get a computer science degree, the world's changing, AI is coming, people are out of work, people are struggling to get careers. This is an incredible addition to your skill set as a computer science person to become more of a kind of a full stack person. Yeah. But to try to get the students to take interest has been a struggle for me. I just put that out there. And maybe there's insights on how to do it that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, there's so I'm gonna tell you one of the problems really that was timing, I think. It was a pretty hard sell just to get the number of people that we wanted to this conference that were already developers, right? Getting somebody who doesn't have any experience with a system, it's like, well, do I want to go there? And then the timing was the biggest problem, to be honest, because they're in school right now. They're all taking classes and midterms and things. So be able to take 4 days out is a little bit hard. You might be able to get some graduate students that way, but I don't think those people actually got targeted very well. So that timing is a big issue with students.
Timing. We didn't have the best timing.
Yeah.
Eric, I said in the beginning that I wanted to present a couple of ideas. One of them about students that we're talking about now, and I also wanted to talk a little bit about user groups. My career between 1972 and 2000 was in the promotional products industry, the thing that John called merch. There's a national trade association that began in Chicago way back 100 years ago. And they moved to Dallas, Texas in the 70s. They awakened to the idea that they needed to do some outreach to bring youngsters, students into a trade for careers.
Yeah.
They created a program that they called the VIP Professor. And they appealed to marketing professors at lots of universities around the country. They flew them into their national convention once a year. They put them up in a hotel, probably had a dinner that I didn't attend with those professors, and then they allowed them to walk the trade show, meet the vendors, come to some committee meetings, learn about the trade, because the curriculum that they were teaching in marketing in those days was limited to newspaper, broadcast radio, television, billboard. There was nothing about the promotional products industry that we know today, because it's all over the internet, on television, and it's much more common. In those days, it was called specialty advertising. Some people called it trinkets and trash. It wasn't professionalized. But by getting it into the university curriculum, it attracted people to careers. And there were three kinds of careers that appealed to students like that. They could get into sales if that was their interest. They could go to work for a manufacturing company that produced and decorated the merchandise. Or at the very least, and this was the surprising result, they would become educated buyers. So if they went into corporate and their job was in marketing, they knew that there was a channel called promotional marketing that they could direct corporate funds to. So I see a parallel to that
Yeah.
in FileMaker, because even if somebody doesn't show an interest in coding, doesn't show an interest in the technical side of FileMaker, at the very least, they might go into a position in some enterprise, corporate, or even small business where they learn that there is such a thing as FileMaker that can solve business problems for them, where they're otherwise turning to Excel or Salesforce or some other thing that you and I know are not as effective as what we do.
Mhm.
Now, the same trade association also, I don't forget what the term is, but kind of out of their national association grew local associations. And the origins of it, at least the way my father explained it to me, were that there was these two guys in New York who were in a region that had a lot of members of the National Association, but there were two in particular who were resentful of the fact that because they were Jewish, they weren't allowed on the board of directors. That's how things were in the 1960s. So they started their own local trade association in New York, and it became enormously successful. So Los Angeles copied it, Chicago copied it, and over the course of my career, there became 30 to 35 successful regional associations. The important thing that I think is relevant for Claris is that the aggregate membership of all of those local associations who put on their own events, not just dinner meetings once a month, sometimes local trade shows that attract people from more than just their geographic boundaries, was that the aggregate membership of all of them far outnumbered what the National Trade Association had for its paid membership. So if you think about the partner community, that I'm going to guess, you correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, but at DevCons, what did we have, 1,500 partners? The community of partners around the world is far more than those 1,500. So if there was an effort by Claris, Rick and I talked about this already, so he knows where I'm going with this, to support the user groups somehow in a way that would take the place of what the pandemic did to making us go on to Zoom.
Since you're hooking up there next to education there, I'm gonna because you brought up my thought about one thing is one thing that FileMaker is capable of doing. Don't tell the educational institution, but they can actually create dropouts. This actually happens because again, you to get going, you don't actually have to learn. You don't have to go to school don't have to go to school for 4 years and not 5 years, and to be able to get started and start making money with things like this because it's got such a low learning curve. I'm not going to mention their names, but there are San Jose State dropouts who went straight to FileMaker and actually made a business that they're still in today. So
Eric and Dennis dovetails into something I don't know how many people realize that we're doing this, but there's Apple Developer Academies that were created to teach people Swift. And it's, I think, a 2-year curriculum. Well, we started in Naples, Italy as an experiment and asked them to add as an elective FileMaker. And we did that for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. We recently went to the Detroit Academy, did the same thing, taking what we did in Naples. And so when it came to those people who wanted to learn FileMaker, there were so many, they had to move to a bigger room that held over 100 people. Oh. And I think the hook is exactly what you said is, do I want to spend 2 years in the Apple Academy learning Swift and competing against everyone in the world that knows Swift, or can I pick this thing up in 6 months, have a paying job because there's not enough developers out there that you guys need? And so it was really encouraged to us. And so we had the potential to spread to all of those worldwide. Then it got us to thinking, well, what about trade schools and something like that? And I approached DeVry University and said, what if we gave you curriculum and you could teach that? And they're interested, right? So I think that if you want to get new people, these are the places that you find them. But, you know, and the dropout thing is very, very interesting as well. But the reason is it's very expensive to go to college. And what you're trying to do is make money coming out the other end. Yeah. So you can make money in 6 months rather than 2 years and then compete against all of these people. Right. So it's been very encouraging, and this is just average.
Yeah, that's good. Here, just a second. Let me finish. I'm going to go ahead and finish the groundwork here.
Is that even if they don't hear you, they
Dennis.
about it.
All right.
Mike.
So let's finish one last point. Actually, this is all good conversation. We're going to come right back to it. I just got one last slide and one last point. All right. Because remember, I said laying the groundwork included getting to know yourself, getting to know your customer, getting to know your enemy. And so in this case, our enemy is immunology. Right. What makes people resistant to infection? Right. And I just had two ideas here. It's just something to make us think on the opposite end of the spectrum here. So already having a healthy system prevents infection. Right. And this is true in the human body. Right. If you're pretty healthy, you are much less susceptible to infection of almost any kind, to be honest. There's actually a YouTube video out there that says you're already immune to everything. But the thing is that we have lapses and there's a few things that work around our immune systems. But nevertheless, you're already, so in our community, an example of that would be if somebody already has a system that does everything they want it to do, and it works really well, and it's not FileMaker, well, they're immune to FileMaker, right? So that's not really a good target, because you're not going to reach those people. It's going to be hard to sell to something that people are already happy with what they've got. But something we can do something about is this kind of immunity, right? So already having a bad bout with a virus increases resistance or fear, right? And so what happens is if you catch something and you end up having a really bad time with it, like extended sickness, a lot of symptoms, and you have a really hard, your body actually develops more resistance, right? If I catch something and it's like one night and I'm over it the next morning, my body doesn't have as much immunity as if I had a week-long bout with it, right? And that actually heightens your resistance, assuming that your immune system's working, right? If your immune system doesn't work, you're just unhealthy for other reasons, then yeah, that doesn't apply. And then of course the other type of resistance is fear, right? Like you catch something really bad, you don't want that to happen again. Well, you hide whenever you see somebody who's sick, you hide from them, right? So it's now this applies again in our community, right? If somebody has a really bad experience with FileMaker, right? It didn't work for them, yeah.
Is that company still around?
It was really crappy, it's like they had a hard time doing it themselves, or the developer who was doing stuff for them did a really bad job and left them with a bad taste in their mouth. But maybe it just could be interpersonal. It didn't even have to be the actual program itself. That creates a resistance to FileMaker, and again, also fear. So anyway, that's it. So to sum up, these are Communicables, our communities, and the immunity problems that we have. By the way, these slides are available. You can download those from the QR code and everything else that we have. In fact, the QR codes were just another example of something that's viral. So anyway, that's just to kick off whatever conversation you want to have at this point.
Eric, thank you. I just wanted to dovetail off the education thing a little bit, and that is, I don't know now how many years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I saw an article in Wired magazine about 42U, and it was in the Bay Area. It was just across the bridge here. And I said to my cohorts at work one day, I says, hey, I just called the lady, the organizer, let's go down and talk to her, whatever. And it led to an opportunity to present to these students and what intrigued me is it's free. It's free. And people attend it, and if they manage to get in, they get room and board. They were getting room and board for free, and the ability to sit and learn with peers from all over the world.
Could have done that here.
This was a very wealthy person in France who started this in Paris, and then wanted to replicate it. And of all places to replicate it was Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And it became very, 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 very successful, to the point where I managed to talk to the lady. I don't remember her name right now, Jamie, I think it was. And I said, hey, let's, I want to tell these people, these young people about FileMaker and what it is and how my journey became something where I earn a living and all this. And And what's interesting about many of these people is, yes, they were studying software, but they came from so many different backgrounds, just like all of us. Like, I don't have a computer science degree, but I ended up doing this. I like it. But the interesting thing is that you deal not only with software, you're dealing with psychology of people. As Rick, you well know this because you've seen it directly and seen it through the different people that you know in the community, right? And so I think that's a fascinating thing for people who might be interested in this way of living, if you wish, and it can turn into a career, it can turn into a business. And I tell you, when I spoke to that group of people, I think there was like maybe 50 people in the room that time. Alina, Brendan, Brandon, Hiroshi, they all resonated with it. And they said, yeah, like, we want to sign up for the internship, whatever. We ended up hiring them all. Alina ended up at Apple. Brendan is still with us. Brandon works at Facebook. But they came through us, and they were awesome. They were just awesome. And it's finding this way to introduce those people who might not think of it. And I don't know what the right solution is. So that's why this is kind of a lead-in introduction to Andrew.
Hey, Vince.
Because he is kind of like, we want to put him under the microscope, right? Because he's working with, with Charles? Yeah, you work with Charles, right? Tell us a little bit of how you ended up doing FileMaker and getting interested in FileMaker. You're new to FileMaker, right?
I am. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew. I was expecting to speak here, so I apologize if this is a bit awkward, but so I graduated about 4 years ago from university, out of University of Western Ontario.
In computer science?
In computer science. And coming out of university, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't have a clear vision in my education. And, considering the job market these days, I wasn't thinking on what my first employment was going to be. So I applied to many different positions. The one that got back to me first was Charles at Farms. And we did the interview literally the next day. And a couple hours later, I realized I got the job. And I started off as mainly, so for those who don't know what Farms is, it's a web app builder for FileMaker powered applications. And I started off doing mostly web app development using our own product. So I got to utilize some of my background in CS, building web pages. And that's kind of the focus. And there were a few of us got hired. There was me and a few other CS students got hired. And I noticed there was, and to be frank and not to be too down here, but I've never heard of FileMaker ever throughout my education. When I heard about it, I had did my research on what it was. I saw it was on Apple software or our own product. And I thought it was cool. I had no idea what it was, but I was open to learning because, who knows where that may take me. But I did notice my other peers had this resistance to learning this software. And I wasn't sure why. Was it because it was a bit niche? Did they think that, this is just a stepping stone for me? Maybe this isn't what I'm going to use 10, 20 years down the line. And I didn't take that as, I didn't want that to be a barrier for my own learning. I realized, maybe if this isn't something I'm going to use 10, 20 years, the skills that I gain or learn by learning the software will be invaluable no matter what kind of software I use. But really, I think the first time I really thought that maybe this is something I want to do for my career is at my first conference. It was in EngagU in Antwerp. And we were there, we had a booth to advertise our product. And we had a sponsored session where there was a couple of dozen people in the room that show off what our product is. And I was just really nervous. It was my first public speaking opportunity, and I was terrified. But the response I got that day and the welcoming community really made me feel at home and made me feel encouraged to continue what I was doing. So from there, I kind of fell in love with the community, and I got to learn a lot more about the product. I ended up learning a lot more about FileMaker. I think I have probably maybe 2 years of actually using the product itself. So I'm definitely behind you guys, but everyone's been super awesome. And that's, oh, and also shout out to Matt Navarre. I did his training course, and he was kind of my first official
That's
advocate to the FileMaker world. So yeah, that's kind of
Thanks.
man.
Thanks, man. They used to send me a carousel tray of slides to go to a college class as a guest speaker. You know, the old days when we had slide projectors, script, one tray of slides. Everyone here is like your volunteer who would do that as an evangelist wherever they are. You should.
We've got an army of evangelists.
You got a whole army of willing volunteer evangelists who would work for you in their community if they had an invitation to speak to a class at a university. I would.
Yeah, I would. So can I make a comment? Way back in the back, I can't control the camera and all that. So it jumped up while I got Andrew because I can stand over him. And thank you, Andrew, for coming. I think you're partially representative. And I think it's what I've learned over the years. Number one is, and somebody said this earlier, I think Eric might have said, is know your customer. What is it we're trying to accomplish? And who are those targets? And I say customer, in this case, we're talking about developers predominantly. I fly on airplanes all the time, cross country and so on and so forth. To my knowledge, haven't caught COVID. I'm pretty resilient to flu and all that sort of stuff. But every once in a while, I get knocked out. So I'm playing off your analogy, Eric. But it takes a lot of engagement. It takes a lot of targeting before you're going to attract someone. You know, we're not going to get, God bless all the effort you did, but they don't know who FileMaker is, and all of a sudden you issue them an invitation and say, come and learn about it. And they're like, I've already got plans for this week, right? So we need to, and this is where I love evangelists. I believe that we need to invest in this day by day, week by week. Maybe if this full access, I vote for doing this again next year, we'll figure that out. But if we do this next year, maybe the first night or a night before or whatever, or one of our main evenings, let's invite some students up here. Let's do it more social, and we'll put our 15 minutes of fame up on the screen or whatever. You guys can wear green suits again. But we have to invest in, we have to invest proactively, patiently in this community. It's just, we're not going to get instant gratification. And I think we've learned that, and we needed to do that, and we need to get the feedback. But this is the long haul. And I don't know how students, you're the youngest one here, so I'll pick on you. I'm not going to call you student, but I don't know how to do that in educational institutions. But this area is rich.
Right.
And so let's spend the next 10 months or something trying. Let's or 6 things or whatever, and see what sticks and see what doesn't. And at the same time, people don't attend or they do attend. Let's kind of personally figure out, as you've transparently shared, Andrew, what was the hook or what was the turnoff, and how can we do this better? Mm-hmm. Right. And it's the same, it's the same kind of challenge really with if you want this conference and somebody said low attendance, I don't think this is low attendance. I think it's our first attendance and we're doing just fine, thank you. But next year we want more. We want to reach more people. I hear and feel all that passion when we're talking about getting senior, mid-level, or senior level, or beginning level developers here. We also need to be planting those seeds, not when registration opens in September, but for the next 6 months. And so
thank you.
And I'm not picking on you, John. You've done a great job.
But I'm going to kind of tailgate off that.
Yeah.
And I'll get this mic to Ron in a minute, but I'm so glad that Vince brought Andrew and Dan in the conversations. It's exactly what I've been trying to do for half an hour, to get the microphone to you. My big passion, and it has been since we started this, that's always been for me, to bring in the younger, newer people and build the next generation, right? I'm going to be 70. How much longer can I do this?
Yeah.
So I really want to bring in the younger people. In fact, I want to, after I'm done here, pass this to Michael McGrath. Will you?
I'm old.
You're old. You look young to me.
Tony says he's young. He's raising his hand up there.
Okay. I wanted to hear from all the young people in the community how we get there. And now that I think about it, after listening to Dean just now, it's like,
If you
maybe
can unmute
this
yourself.
event this year had to happen this way to get us launched with a senior crowd
What do you want to do?
and establish a little bit of a
Oh, this. Okay.
awareness
leave
of
up
the
the rest of
community,
the
in the
discussion.
sense, not
They're not
for
showing
integrity, but
when their faces
a
up
sense
there
of
anyway.
the word credibility. We had to establish a little credibility by doing this event the way we did, and it's now we have a year to plan it. We could start marketing towards colleges and whatever other, and wherever we can find young people to bring them into the fold. Now that we have enough traction here to maybe warrant it, if together we figure out how to market this type of get-together thing to bring in more young people and educate, make them more aware, like they can expand their life. Maybe it had to start this way. We tried hard to get people on scholarship. We had people, some of the members donating money towards scholarship, and then nobody took advantage, but it's like, because they don't know who we are. So we need to take this and move it forward. So if you don't want to speak, that'd be fine. I'd love you did, just for a moment, and then give it to Ron, who's been patiently waiting. My pants fall off.
What do you want me to say?
Just tell us how you got into this community and what you're doing.
Hi, Michael. I got into this community by knowing Chris Irvine. And I've known Chris Irvine probably for 15 years. I family knew him, and I had no idea what FileMaker was that whole time, up until the very first interview with him. And I was in CS. I did programming in college, and I didn't hear about it, just like Andrew. I think if we want to grow communities like this, I think there needs to be an effort to hire junior devs. In the conferences I've gone to, I haven't met that many junior devs, and if there's no junior devs, then there's no younger generation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And junior devs can't be AI, by the way.
Exactly, yes.
And since you are more or less part of that generation, do you have any insight as to how we might approach those people, how we might initiate? Do you have any idea?
Stop being old.
So when Chris hired me, I had no experience with FileMaker. I had general programming experience, but he had to apprentice me to grow in FileMaker to teach me this stuff, and that took a lot of work. And I'm really grateful for Chris for all the work he did to do that. But it takes work to apprentice new developers and new junior developers. It's not something that you can just hire and they'll be ready to program and be profitable immediately. You need to train them up.
Ron is doing that right now. He's training somebody.
Here,
Good segue.
just a sec. Oh, Ron, we did have a hand raised up on
Tony.
DIGFM.
Oh,
Tony, you want to speak?
Audio test. You can hear me okay?
Right this way. How about now?
Can you hear me okay? Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you for allowing me to participate. This is now officially a hybrid meeting because I'm in New York City. So I'm taking notes, enjoying the conversation, and I have some, thoughts, hopefully connected to what other people have said. So I think the initiatives where they were training young people in France and around the world, those sound to have been a great success. I would add to that I think the primary viral spread, I'm going to work the theme here, is happy owners and users. Like any organization that's using FileMaker successfully and is happy, scratching the surface or perhaps using more of the incredibly robust, diverse, super powerful platform is going to, just through their social interactions, spread to other people. Owners talk to owners, employees move around. So I would think that's the primary spread factor, or one of the primary spread factors. That leads us to user groups. A big fan of user groups. I see them as part of a larger ecosystem. The FileMaker community website, FM soups, the Slack groups, the social media and so forth. I'm going to try and focus a little bit on the user groups. and just share some thoughts. It's obviously been mentioned that the time of COVID, definitely changed the nature of the user groups. Kind of a mixed blessing, in my opinion. We did, at least for a while, in different areas, lose, the New York, we would get together for meetings, insult each other's code, and then go out to dinner and buy ourselves. That was what we did. It's interesting to see how the different user groups run their meetings. I like the groups that record some and don't record others, because you get at least two different dynamics. Some things are better said off the record. I like, and I'm just giving you some of my personal preferences. I like the user groups that have these conversations, and I think user groups really excel at that, because whether it's sort of due to the unofficial nature, you can have kind of these conversations. Like in New York, like I said, we don't really insult each other's code, but we will critique it in a good spirited way. New York group, we will at some point be meeting again. We've had a couple virtual meetings since the time of COVID. Good attendance, actually. It's challenging in New York. More on that later, but stay tuned. Looking through my notes here. I was multitasking. I was looking up, according to artificial intelligence, Google artificial intelligence, and therefore obviously true. Apparently you can read a transcript 3 to 4 times faster than watching a video. Obviously the pros and cons with videos, there's pros and cons with transcript. One of them 3 to 4, picking up a little bit on what Rick was saying, or someone, I think it was Rick, but there's so much content, which is good and also kind of daunting. Hat tip to Eric, another hat tip for doing the timestamp links often on the videos, and obviously the visuals. He was doing visuals before artificial intelligence was doing visuals. Maybe he's the guy behind the curtain. Let's see, lots of meetings all over the world. Mixed blessing, because rather than going to a local meeting, you can attend meeting in England and Australia, depending on your time zone. Let's see, wrapping up here. This is the final block of thoughts here, and I just, maybe it's appropriate to close with a little bit of a immunity hat tip. I think the attacks that we see on the FileMaker platform, the immune system, is strengthened by happy users. The attacks that I think it's good to inoculate against are the IT department sometimes comes snooping around. And if you keep them happy, and we do that by, giving them knowledge about the platform, we show them how to manage the server with shell scripts and stuff like that. You want to inoculate against other products by explaining that FileMaker is a different platform and teaching people how to use it to its full extent. It really, it has a huge competitive advantages against other things. And then final thought, internal flaws. You want to avoid the autoimmune disease of writing bad code, which of course I've never done that. Anyway, thank you for allowing me to participate. Those are my thoughts.
Thanks, Tony. Actually, one short commercial. Tomorrow, before anybody else from DIGFM leaves, tomorrow we have, tomorrow we do have another DIGFM meeting. This is our second DIGFM meeting for the month. We're going to have another one with Mike Wallace. He's going to be doing FileMaker Get the Brain. So stay tuned for that.
I'm feeling like the next thing he was going to say is our apologies to Matt Damon. We ran out of time this week. Next week. I just had a couple of quick thoughts, and they do pertain a little bit more to user groups. And one of the things that I wanted to say too is, when we're talking about junior developers, junior does not always mean young either.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, look at how many of us, myself didn't get introduced to FileMaker or become actively a developer until my 40s. And so, the two of the things that I see as major strong points about Claris and FileMaker is, one, the community. The community for FileMaker and Claris, like us, the people, are amazing, and the community and the camaraderie and the support that we give and all of that stuff is such a strong aspect that attracts people. And I think one of the things too is how do we retain people, and the community is part of how we retain people, because I see new developers come into our group occasionally, and maybe they're and kind of leads into the other thing that I think that we cannot forget. The other strong point of FileMaker is the citizen developer, because how many of us started out as the citizen developer? And when we get the new citizen developer that comes into the group, and they're so warmly greeted, and they're made to feel welcome, and everything is great, and they're amazed, and they love that aspect of it. But here's what I see happening. Our presentations and our subject matter and all of that stuff, I think especially with user groups, has gotten to the point where we're all so excited about the latest and the greatest that subject matter goes over the young developer's head or the new developer's head. And I know I never forget that it wasn't that long ago that I had attended groups and just felt like a deer caught in the headlight. And I had no idea what was going on. So, and that makes it hard to go back, right? So to be able to keep them engaged and give them the opportunity to participate, I think sometimes, and this is just kind of the direction I wanted to go, was just plan an idea, maybe among the group leaders, maybe is the idea that sometimes it's not a bad idea to go with some subject matter that's maybe a little bit more medium level or even beginner level for people to be more invited to be in participation. And at Engage last year, one of my favorite sessions, I can't remember his name, he's a Japanese gentleman, did a session, and he covered like 30 techniques that were pretty lower level techniques in FileMaker. And it was an amazing discussion. And even, we've experienced the same thing when we have addressed that kind of stuff in Kentuckiana. When you do that stuff, even those of us that feel like, I know all of that, I'm not going to learn anything from it. And then you find that there's something that you missed. And there's something that comes up that you're like, oh my God, I never knew about that. And so it's very engaging. So one of the things I wanted to end my thought with is the idea that when it comes to presenters out there in the user group realm, it's hard. One of the challenges is getting presenters month after month, especially when you're a monthly group. Another challenge is that we're kind of recycling all the same presenters, the people who are out there doing the tours to push their next great idea, their newest thing. But there are a lot of us in here who could be presenters too, right? Just maybe think about the idea that, if you feel like you have some techniques that are, not necessarily the most, latest and greatest thing, but some foundational techniques that you feel you can share with other people, don't be afraid to be a presenter too, and be available to kind of present those kind of things.
So was that Koji, by the way, that you're talking about? Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, you gotta get him.
So pre-COVID, I had started a second user group in the Northwest that was basically focused around new users. And we'd be going into what's important. We were that basic. And that was going pretty good until, COVID hit and kind of dissolved it. One of the things that I want to challenge people on is that if you are doing Zoom meetings, as you know, they don't have to be geographically centric. I rolled my Northwest group into Portage Bay's Claris Beyond group. We lost a lot of members, but the thing with the Claris Beyond group that does Zoom meetings is that they are not geographically centric, they are topic centric. So their topic is basically Claris Beyond, using other technologies with Claris, APIs, etc. But there is lots of opportunities to do, well, if it's on Zoom, be able to do, new people, introductory stuff. I think is great. And there are a lot of other topics in there. There could be, beginning, intermediate, advanced. Because I agree with you, Ron. I think most of the things that I see that are demonstrated are fairly high level. And that, I think, cuts people out. The other thing is, in terms of engagement and getting developers engaged and coming out and meeting in person, John and I know what a struggle that is to get these get people in here. And I do want to challenge Claris and Rick. And a lot of people aren't happy with the Apple venue for Engage because the ability to network and schmooze is somewhat limited. And, I'm not gonna, I don't know if there's probably politics and everything else involved in this. I have no idea, no clue. But I think, a change of venue would be very healthy, in my opinion. I think people like to congregate. So, I know there's a number of factors, budgetary, politics, and everything else, but that's just kind of my sense. I don't have anything behind the scenes that I know about. I'm going to throw it over to Rick. And you can reply.
Yeah, hand that to Rick, right? I want to rip off that a little bit. Because we did talk about like a lot of our user groups getting smaller and the conferences getting smaller. One thing I remember when I talked about DevCon to go, or which is now Engage to go a while back. I mean, I had this idea a while back, and I said, "Wow, this is such a useful tool. I'm using it to keep track of all the things because sometimes your memories. I watched so many sessions, and which was the one that was about this and that, and who was the speaker. That was really cool that in DevCon to go, Engage to go, actually helped me track a lot of that. I was actually, for the rest of the year, I would make use of that app to go back to, hey, what did I see again? And I said, well, why is DevCon to go an app that you only use once? For 1 year, it's I said, well, why doesn't it just continue? Why doesn't it just keep going? You just keep on adding more sessions and collect them all, right? I thought like Pokemon Go or something, where you just keep adding the sessions and collecting the things that you see and watch and actually the things you want to watch. Because you can go back and see all the other videos that were presented at Engage and a lot of the ones that were here and all the ones that are played at FMDisk and DevCon to go. I mean, there was like a standardized way being able to collect that of the speakers, the meetings, and say, I want to go see that presentation. I want to follow Maeckel Wallace the next time he speaks. You have one place you could go to look up anything you have seen or want to see in the future. And I'm just saying that would be a really good way to go viral, to take a lot of things that have gotten smaller and make them one big thing.
That's a fantastic idea for your snack. 3 things. One, I've been involved in organizing about 25 DevCons. We absolutely are going back to the old way. And here's the reason why. I contend that 40% of the value is the presentations, and 60% of the value happens outside where we can network together and talk to each other. Full stop. Number 2 is I forgot number 2. One, something that Ron said, but I heard it. I think it was at one of the users group I was at recently, and it really made me sort of think. And someone said, there are plenty of young developers out there, but they don't send them to the conference. Oh. And what I think we should do is say, if you're under a certain age, we will deeply discount. If you send your younger junior developers to the conference, I mean, come on, it's low-hanging fruit, right? And Phil, like me, I can't remember the second one. It's probably the most brilliant, and that's what I said.
That's great.
Right.
Yeah.
Good, bad.
Just real quick,
That we're not
the
Apple campus.
curious because the people that I talked to,
Elsewhere.
as far as the who were developers, they were not developers. They were in another field, and then they got into FileMaker because they used it and it was useful to them, and then they became developers. How many of you that's your story? So that's why I think that things like the free thin client or whatever, or if you want a network or something like that, then you add you have to do the license or whatever. But just for individual people to make it profitable for that person, and then when they want to start sharing with somebody else,
get rid of it. I say get rid of the 5 sharing thing. And if you want to share it all, now you get into the thing, but make the lowest level free. Because that's when I think FileMaker's biggest problem, well, it's 2 biggest problems. One, bad code, because not that kind of code. I get so tired of hearing FileMaker slow.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's absolutely not. And in fact, it works extremely well considering what bad code is built on top of it. So, a lot of that. But the second thing is that not for you're saying the same thing too.
Don't watch me.
But when I was talking about the getting people in
entry level freeware.
Yeah, some of the freeware like that, but and probably its biggest I think biggest problem is that it's our best kept secret. Like if people really knew everything about FileMaker that I know, if I could just go do a brain dump out into the world, you would not be able to keep up with the demand.
It's the venue that makes the idea you're proposing difficult. It's a great idea to have a year after year after year collection of the sessions. So much of DevCon to Go had its origins in the printing of a booklet long ago and the creation of DVDs that used to get sent out to us. None of that's necessary anymore. I'm done.
So, piggyback on the 25 DevCons I organized, one of the things that I noticed very, very, very few people ever came with CS degrees. They all came from being subject matter experts that picked it up for some reason, found out they were good at it, liked it, and found themselves on stage almost to a T. I'm talking like 90% plus. Now, it looks like we're getting some people with CS degrees now, which is fantastic. Because the other thing we know is if you come already understanding these concepts, you can sail through and you can appreciate, I can compare it to this, and it may not be SQL, but what can I do, right? So that's interesting as well. It occurs to me that we're like the island of misfit toys. Right? Somehow, we've all just come together from disparate backgrounds. And that's why we enjoy it, because we're interesting. We all are something outside of what we do with FileMaker, right? So, for instance, I learned so much more about Jonn. I've known Jonn for 25 years. And in one day, I learned 10 times more about him. Where are you going to do? You can't do that on Zoom.
No.
Just can't. Anyway, I'll put it.
Thank you.
I did want to say that Jonn did propose to do a session on speaking at a previous Engage, correct? And that was turned down because I don't know that.
They don't understand the context.
Now you have to see it too, so I can vouch for it now.
Thank you.
I think it'd be a fantastic company.
Great.
Eric invited me to do a DIGFM last November, and Vince came up to me yesterday to remark how enjoyable it was. It wasn't the usual FileMaker session.
We got 2 mics out there. Can you grab one of them?
Dennis.
You need a mic.
Just sit there.
Eric invited me to do this DIGFM meeting last, I think it was November. And I decided instead of doing the normal quick little bio about my family and my hobbies and then get into some kind of a demo, I did a 35-minute thing about how I got into my current career, going all the way back to, I don't remember when it began. Apparently it resonated with Vince, and I was kind of apprehensive at the time. Do these people really want to hear this? Vince loved it. And we had a nice little chat about it yesterday.
Because you told a story, grab the mic.
Oh, I told it, and I animated the story with a keynote file that had a lot of funny images in it.
Well, I just wanted to add something because I think we can do more we, even before or if Claris decides to ever do a freemium version, I think I want to think back to the days of FileMaker Cloud 1.0 when it was hosted at Amazon, AWS Marketplace. I think we were told that something like 20% of the customers simply found FileMaker server as a result of browsing the AWS Marketplace catalog.
Wow.
And so I'm thinking, well, how can we duplicate that? Because, a 20% uplift in sales is significant, What if the 45-day trial edition of FileMaker was put in the Mac App Store and the Windows App Store? People would browse and find it. Now, there certainly could be, sandboxing limitations and things like that, which could easily be, documented. But I think, you want to get it out there, and it would be a free download, and people love, it's like a 300-to-1 ratio of people wanting to download free stuff versus paid stuff. And, I think it's worth at least considering trying that, to expand the market. Because I want to do that with my own software as well. I have apps in both of those stores, but my main app has not been put in those stores, and I want to do the same thing.
So if you're here when Ryan does the Q&A tomorrow,
If someone brings up freemium,
Yeah, hear that idea.
Let's let David do it.
Yeah, I would like to.
Wait, what about freemium?
I'm sure the subject will come up.
David, you head that up.
So a couple other things that I've found very successful that got discontinued. One was working with Apple in the Apple Store.
Yes.
I used to go in there and do presentations like that, and there was a lot of good introduction there. And even that with Apple employees, that Apple employees had no idea about pharmacy, and so trying to we had Richard for a while had a website for the Apple employees to where they could go and have access to like that. And I'm like, when you look at a new Mac, when you're buying a new Mac, you have the option to buy the extra software. Why in the world is not FileMaker on there? I mean, it's way more useful to a whole lot more people than
Logic.
Well, I'm talking about the ones that what are the two that usually show up? One is
Logic Pro.
Yeah, Logic Pro and Final Cut Pro.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so FileMaker Pro would be a much better, useful thing.
Maybe at $99.
I mean, and anything.
I actually just wanted to kind of advocate for the peer-to-peer sharing because my story was that a very small company, we started out building a database and we're able to just connect a few people together. And if we had not been able to do that, I never would have been able to go to the owner of the company and justify the expense to go into a server and be able to demonstrate the benefits of that.
Yeah.
So I think peer-to-peer sharing is actually, an important thing that is it even currently in there now?
Yeah. We just warned that don't use it for certain things because the thing is you can't use SSL, right? But I agree that it's the gateway drug.
Yeah.
You don't even understand why you would need server until you understand what FileMaker do.
I think I've heard, in the past, I've kind of heard rumblings of them, doing away with that. And I hope that doesn't end up being the case. And maybe it even needs a little more emphasis because, there are probably a lot of people out there that don't even realize they can do that.
Yeah.
Where's Bill Heiser now?
It's the lion thing.
He was the one who approached me to do meetings at the Apple Store, where the employees have it on the shelf for sale. But they were inviting customers in and inviting people like Maeckel or me to make a presentation to some prospects. It was a wonderful program.
Yeah, that's how we found Louis. Louis working at an Apple Store. Chris with the light in the Apple Store, and then Chris hired Louis, and then we hired Louis.
Hey, just real quick, I wanted to comment that to the chin. Spent Microsoft 3 versions of Visual Fox Pro. I was responsible for worldwide marketing and all the engagement. there's a lot of parallels between Visual Foxtrot and FileMaker, especially with the community. I just want everybody to know that I have a lot of thoughts, a lot of suggestions, and welcome to talk to me in person or email or whatever after the event. I have a lot to contribute, and we'll go way beyond the session, but I just want to let you know that I really would like to help y'all grow and do the things that are realistic. Sometimes they're a little bit idealistic, but realistic.
Wait, 5-minute warning, then dinner.
One thing that I would want to mention, if I were putting a listing in the Microsoft App Store, what I would do is, like, line 1 of my description would be comparing FileMaker with Access and saying Access is limited to a 2 gig file size limit, and FileMaker is 8 terabytes. The peer-to-peer networking is another important thing, critical. Because with an Access database, people try to take an Access file, put it on a file server, and then when multiple users try to access it, they corrupt the file. And so even with peer-to-peer networking, you don't run into that. And so those are 2 things that you could put at the top of your listing. And by the way, Microsoft will approve almost anything that's factual. They're not that picky with their listings. So I have products in both of the app stores. And I put something in the Windows App Store, they pretty much approve it just, right away without any hassle. And so as long as it's factual information, you could say in there, you could compare yourself to Access. They would not, prevent you from being listed because you're comparing yourself to Access. You could definitely pull it off.
Does Access do container fields yet?
Yes, it does have data, but it does have a container field type data. I can't transfer data back and forth between them on the 2 databases, but it does have that.
David, real quick.
Okay.
You said Access, and this is full access. So many changes in the full file.
Don't go Access, go full Access.
Full FileMaker. I was just following up on what you guys were saying about the Apple Store. I actually did multiple trainings at the San Luis Obispo store, and not only did we get many users that have no idea what it was, but they were the same training that we did, like a multiple one.
Right.
And I got clients from it. They were just little businesses that were looking for something because they didn't want to go this whole big old ecosystem. And so these little businesses, and they ended up growing and actually taking themselves to the next level because they really could handle more business and be able to do more things. I wanted to do it the following year, and they wouldn't do it because they said, no, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, but wait a minute, all these people in this community really benefited from it as well as myself. But yet, why? Why did they do that? And I never got any kind of explanation why they did that.
3-minute warning.
Apple and Claris should have a promotion to try to bring FileMaker developers into the Apple stores, but it was actually in many ways a bid to try to sell iPads.
Yeah.
That was,
Which is fine. I have a problem with that.
no, but that was when they decided that was no longer a thing.
It was no longer a strategy.
Right.
2-minute warning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I think the biggest feedback I got from people is because I would build a database in front of them in that short, thing. I used to build a Hogwarts school database, and I just had the images stuff that I would just download, and I just, but you could do it so fast, people were just blown away at that you had a functional database in such a short amount of time, and you can do some really good demos like that. And so I think that, like I said, I think it's just our best kept secret. And if we just get it out there so people can see it, however way we never get it out there. And I know that's kind of what it's all about. But
Do we have that? Because it was like at the Apple stores, it was when you take an Excel spreadsheet and they went through 10 minutes how to convert it.
Yeah,
and bring it.
that's what they have to start with.
But yeah, maybe we can publish that or put it out.
Business.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Jared Harry in the house.
They know they know the prospects.
Yeah.
So also, I am working on
like
trying to get a couple more engineers at Claris to
people were like, what?
some younger guys that want to come out and speak and stuff like that. There's a lot of introverts, programs, and I just talk too much anyway myself, but, trying to find other people like that, and some of the people that like to talk, their English is really not that great either. It's sometimes distracting. I've gotten comments with their speaking style and stuff like that, but no, there's two young guys, because both Derek's, one's in Japan, another one I think went to Melbourne, right? Or is he going to
They're both
Edinburgh?
presenters too.
Yeah.
We
So
should
we are working, on, because as I mentioned, when I hit 65, I'm planning on failing, but
luckily he's only 35 years old.
yeah, I'm only 35. But, I don't know. I may still go to the conferences anyway, but I won't be I can't say anything official, but
Just talk about in the back.
55. So okay, are we in full circle? Any last important messages? No. Just want to make an announcement. We're having dinner. Now, Darren Terry's here. Welcome. Those who don't know him will get to know him tonight.
Whoa, what the hell?
We're gonna have dinner now down at the dining hall, and then a little break at 7:30. We're all gonna meet up at St. Robert's up the hill. Those who don't know how to get there can follow others. It's an eighth of a mile walk along. Great. We'll have music and have the second portion of the public speaking thing practice session. Beverages will all be moved up there, and that's going to be where everybody's meeting tonight, like come to a party and learn a little more about public speaking. So please join us up there. That's at 7:30.
And don't step on the lizards.
You want the dog there? You want the dog? No, you don't.
I want the goggles. You can keep the suit if you want. Otherwise, I'll take it back.
They already had.
That's awesome. I didn't go right along. That's in your slide.
Yeah, that's my slide.
Awesome.
Yeah, matter for worse. They say they never quote the rest of that saying. They great minds think alike. The fool sells different. No one quotes the second part of that.
Oh, just put it in the bag. You done with this stuff?
So somewhere along the way, let's talk about how you're doing. Zoom is one of these sessions, right?
Yes.
Let's figure out how to do that better.
Is he awake?
Probably not. I don't know. Penguin quack first. Just kidding. All right.